just have to be patient and watch and watch and watch and like wait for the right opportunity. It's like going back to your 80-20 rule, you got to wait for the right 20%. 20% of those encounters are going to be good. And so like, don't just be fumbling around in the woods, covering ground. That's the 80, right? Like don't be messing around with like these 80% of situations that aren't going to turn into anything. Be looking for the right 20% of opportunities that are going to that you're going to be able to capitalize on.
You are listening to the Run the Rack Outdoors podcast, where we take an all-in, leave no doubt approach to all things adventure hunting. From the big woods to the high country.
How about that?
Let's learn together as we discuss with our expert guests on what it takes to be successful in the backcountry. I'm your host, Weston Homa. Let's get into it. All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Run the Rack Outdoors podcast. This week, I got on Cody Rich, and I was so stoked to talk with Cody because Cody has been in the world of podcasting as long as, like, Joe Rogan. I remember, hunting podcasts were around even before I started listening to podcasts or even knew what podcasts were. But I think some of the OG podcasters, at least in the hunting space, were like Brian Call, Cody Rich here, and like I don't even know who else. But yeah, Cody's one of the OGs, and he's just an absolute killer. I was glad to get him on. I was glad to pick his brain. Just a really like smart dude, and wanted to dive all into elk hunting. So I had a bunch of lessons learned, had a ton of encounters, got into a bunch of elk, talking with elk, bugled a couple in. I did ultimately fling an arrow at a raghorn and I missed, but just becoming more of a student of that animal, just going to keep grinding. And there was a lot I wish I could have done differently. Don't have elk all figured out yet. But like I said, I tried to note down a lot of lessons learned, things I want to get better at for next time on these hunts. And I threw a lot at Cody on this episode. So I think it was a great episode if you're just wanting to learn more about elk. So really good episode here. All things lessons learned, elk hunting with Cody. Thanks again for hopping on, man. Really appreciate it. Other things going on here, just living it up here in Boise. So by now, I'm recording this Sunday night, and this is going to drop here Tuesday morning. So the last couple weekends, so I tagged out on that buck a couple weekends ago. Just so stoked about that. Backpacked up in there by myself and tagged out on the first day hunting here since I moved here. So that was awesome. Since then, I still had a bear tag, actually. So weekend before this past weekend, I was out looking for bear, and I saw a bear packing my buck out that weekend. So I went back up there and got caught up in a really bad storm. Really think it probably put all the bears to bed anyway, because it got pretty nasty up there. And didn't have much to show for on that weekend. And then this past weekend here, like Sunday night, like I just came back into town here today. And I have actually, this is my archery elk tag. So it turns into a late season any weapon cow tag for a couple weeks in November. So that's cool. But it's not the whole elk zone. It's just one unit of the elk zone. And here in Idaho, the zones are multiple different units together. So I can only hunt in one unit here for the next couple weeks just for a cow. And I'd love to just top off my freezer on top of the couple mule deer bucks I got already this year. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's like lower country. I think it's more their wintering range. And we haven't had a ton of snow yet. It's November 2nd or 3rd. I'm recording this right now. So I'm hoping the next week or two we get some good weather that pushes them into that area. Maybe there's some resident elk that kind of just hide in there all year. I'll try to turn them up. But I was out there Friday night, Saturday, like I said, Sunday morning here, and just was glassing up some deer, glassed up pockets of does, some bucks. Nothing big, but just cool to get some things in the spotter. In the meantime, though, I've had a couple friends here since I moved here, just all into hunting, and that's kind of how I connect with them. Tag out on a couple bulls, so that's always fun to see. I was actually all geared up, like I was gonna go bomb after work on Friday to help pack my buddy's bull out, but he ended up getting that bull out solos. Love seeing guys tag out, love getting those texts. So I'm just like sitting at work and just love it. So That's it for hunting right now. Other than that, I just try to do what I can training here. I got a big year next year as far as like running and endurance and just all these things I want to do now that I'm living out here. The big thing right now is, so I made it to Boston. So the Boston Marathon has been my dream for a long time now, and that's going to be in April. So I really want to start really getting into a good block for that here. I'm just doing what I can. So got a good 10-mile run in today at faster tempo and felt really good. Still got a long way to go because obviously got to at least try to PR in a race. I don't have a goal yet, but my PR that got me here to Boston is 2 hours, 48 minutes. So I got to at least try to beat that. And recently I just got asked about what do I do to stay in shape during season. I think it's really important to just like stick with your daily habits. Like if you don't have that much time, like during the week, your weekdays are a little bit more busy because you're trying to get ready and go out and hunt for the weekend or whatever. Just try to still show up, whether it's just like 20 minutes. That's all you got. Just stay in that same habit because it's really easy to like just start chalking up days like, oh, I'm good. It's hunting season, whatever. And just go day after day after day, not training, then not eating right, and things just snowball. Then it's really hard to pick up good momentum when you got that bad momentum. So just try to just keep showing up, even if it's at a way less scale. That's my advice. I wanted to mention too, so when I was out this past weekend, this morning I got up, wanted to drive to another spot, had a really surreal experience. Before the sun came up, it was raining pretty hard for a couple hours. I was just laying in my tent, hearing all the rain hit my tent, and got out of the tent, decided to not do the couple hour climb, and I was just camped at the truck. Wanted to explore the unit a little bit more, so I hopped in the truck and drove to an area, went up a 2-track road up through the kind of rolling hills into the mountains, and area I've never been before. It was a pretty gnarly 2-track. It was all mudded out now with all the rain. It was still dark. I'm driving up there by myself. And luckily I was in 4-wheel drive, because I'm telling you right now, if I wasn't, I don't know if I'd be sitting here. And this is not me looking for sympathy or like anything like that. Like, not at all. That's not my point. I just wanted to share this because I know a lot of people are out hunting right now, and I know how much we all want to notch our tags, but just please be smart out there. Yeah, basically, my tires were caked in mud, and I was going up this 2-track, and it had really like kind of washed out, but I was already at the point of no return because it was like drop off on my one side. There was no stopping. There was no, try to back my way up. I can feel myself sliding, like no traction on my wheels at all. Luckily, I was in 4-wheel drive because my back end was off the road, and it was off, slid off, slid off, and it would have, if I wasn't in 4-wheel drive, like if I wasn't had just everything just hammering it, like I was texting my brother and I just said, like, I could hear Dad's voice just being like, punch it, and I hammered the truck, had it floored, and my front wheels were able to have enough bite to just pull me up and got me back on the 2-track, came up, leveled out, was really shook up. It's dark, raining, by myself out there, whatever. Again, point is just be smart. That was not smart by me. I probably should have had my chains on, to be honest. Like, that mud was just nasty. Yeah, maybe just think a lot, how I got to slow down and be smart, and definitely thank God, sent up a lot of prayers today, and just make sure we're still having a lot of gratitude too, just for, being out here and being able to do the things we want to do. So again, just wanted to share that story just as a reminder. Please, everybody, get out, have fun, enjoy these things, enjoy life, enjoy the mountains. I want everybody to work hard, try to go in deep, all these things, but just be smart. Please be smart, and let's all come home in one piece. So just want to share that story, and I think that's it. So everybody enjoy this one with Cody Rich. Let's all have a great week. Let's work as hard as we can, and let's run the rack. All right. See ya.
Go Hunt has a single purpose: make it easier for hunters to get into the field. Hunting tags are only getting harder to obtain, and Go Hunt is a research platform helping navigate the ins and outs of drawing tags and researching hunts across the West. I've had a Go Hunt membership for years now, and I'm a big fan of the articles written on there by Brady and Trail. The content is next level stuff that has helped me a ton. From animal behavior to archery, they are sharing all the nuggets. I also love the hunt films on YouTube. They are extremely inspirational, and they'll make you want to get out in the mountains ASAP. Check out the Go Hunt Gear Shop, where they have everything you need for this coming hunting season. Use the code RACK, that's R-A-C-K, for 10% off eligible items in the shop. And you can use the code RACK for $50 in-shop credit when you join as an insider. So sign up for a membership and immediately get $50 back toward hunting gear. Check it out. You won't regret it. How you doing, man? I'm happy to get you on.
Yeah, stoked to be here, man. Yeah, doing good. Yeah, I've been doing podcasts a while, so yeah, it's been a good year. We're kind of chatting about it before. It's bittersweet. I feel like it's kind of coming to a close, but I mean, I say that there's always late season stuff, but there's just a huge difference in like September, and it's funny because in Montana, there's like a very distinct like. It's cool that you get archery and rifle, but at the same time, they're just different sports. And like, so like, you know, like this sport is over and we're entering a new sport, which is like, you know, it's fine. But of course it's like, you know, set to snow this weekend and it's like just such a late season thing in Montana. So I act like season is over. I know it is not, but you know, like September has passed, man. And like, you know, you only get so many of those in life. So yeah, it's good.
I know, and that's kind of how I feel too. Like when most of my vacation is in September, I kind of feel like, you know, I'm done. But normally I'd be chasing whitetails like really hard back east. But now that I'm out west, I can still get out. I try to really think ahead. I picked up a leftover non-resident deer tag this summer out here so I can keep hunting. And then actually my archery elk tag turns into a late season cow tag. So I've had enough to keep me busy on the weekends. So it's like we're still in the game. Yeah.
So now that you moved to Idaho, are you going to be a whitetail guy or a muley guy?
Oh my God, muley guy.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm obsessed with mule deer. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to figure out. I was just talking to, because this will be out after that one drops, Braxton Hamilton.
Yep.
I think he's a Wyoming. You're in Wyoming, correct?
I'm in Bozeman, Montana.
Montana. Okay, never mind. He's a Wyoming guy, big mule deer guy, and we were talking about muleys or whitetails, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what Peaks Equipment shirt I have to get where it says muleys over elk. I thought it would be elk when I first, you know, kind of started hunting the West and everything, but over the years, mule deer, I don't know, man. They just like, they dance with you. They get in your head. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm definitely the elk guy. But if I had to choose, you know, I'm in this predicament like whitetail versus mule deer, where I don't know that I care about mule deer all that much. Like I think I'm more interested in whitetail.
Wow.
I know
Okay.
I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but that's all right. That's all right. And I think it's like, so I grew up in Oregon and I hunted blacktails. And so, I mean, it just like around the farm, you hunted blacktails like whitetail. Like honestly, like we call them valley bucks, and like they are just like whitetail. And so I feel like that's a big piece of it. And like everything I knew about blacktail hunting was from reading whitetail articles because that's like all you had. Like no one does blacktail articles. And so realistically, I just grew up deer. And so I just like read these whitetail articles and got into like, you know, using scents, using rattling. Like I would, you know, go out back and rattle. So like a part of me, you know, got into like, you know, like you move out, you know, I moved east technically, but you move to Montana and it's like, oh, mule deer. And then like, man, I'm like, now I get to see whitetail out my door, you know, my backyard. And so like, I don't know, the whitetails are pretty cool and no one else hunts them. So I'm like, everyone's a muley guy. I'll be a whitetail guy.
There you go too, especially if it's like you can find your own thing with them and they're
Yeah.
not, you know, you're kind of getting away from, because I know a lot of people like out this way, like they're not really infatuated with like the spring bear quite as much,
Yeah.
like the residents. I'm all over it. Like I'm
Yeah.
super excited to chase spring bear. And not to, yeah, because this episode I really want to get into elk. And I don't want to say like, yeah, I'm not an elk guy, because I am still an elk guy as well. And that's why I got you on too. And that's going to be the big theme of this episode here. So I chased elk for almost like 2 full weeks here in September, and this is my second year bow hunting elk. Last year, over the counter Colorado, I shot a cow elk just by myself and pack that whole thing out. That was fun. I blew a bunch of stalks. It was early September. I was just stalking in on herds. But this year was kind of the first time hunting middle to late September, like the rut. And I just wrote down a ton of things here and wanted to just set up this episode to like bounce off kind of these lessons learned.
Yeah, I want to go first before we get started.
Let's do it. Yeah.
What do you feel like was the biggest lesson learned? What was the aha moment in this year?
Okay. Cody, I ask you the question.
This is a podcast. This is hard.
Okay. My biggest lesson learned, I think, great question. I think I have a decent answer. So I'm in the perspective of somebody from out of state. I want to kill a bull, like a big bull, more than anything in the world. So I'm going to read and listen to and watch everything I can about elk and try to be the biggest student I can. And you're learning all about elk behavior and tactics and calling and gear and all this stuff. And that's all so great. I think the number one thing, though, that affects elk by far and away versus all these things is hunting pressure. And that's what has to be front of mind when you're e-scouting, when you're planning your hunt, all the things, looking at weather forecasts, like whatever. All of it's pretty much for naught, and it's going to get thrown out the window if you're getting into hunting pressure. So that's my thing. And if you can avoid it and get on elk, it can be some of the best times out in the mountains.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And the reason I asked that was like to frame a lot of these questions to like just see where you were at with like, I wouldn't say lessons learned, but just in general, like where you're at with like the aha moment, which is, I think everyone has that where it's like you go in the first year and you think it's going to be one thing and it's a different. And you think like, oh, here's my goals. And then you kind of get kicked in the face. And it's like the classic Mike Tyson quote where like everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Right. And like how you adapt to that matter. So anyway, I'll let you continue and you can ask the questions. I guess you can host this, but like, I wanted to get a framework.
No, I'm just busting you. I'd love to keep, you asking me questions too as we go. I think this is going to be good. Okay. We'll just dive right into it. So, for context, again, because I think giving context to hunting questions and podcasts when people give advice is key. I always laugh when, like, I'll never forget this one scenario at work where I was talking to a guy my age, close to my age, and he was going out west for the first time. And he said he was watching something on YouTube or whatever, and he was going to buy this guy's like whole puffy jacket, puffy pant, or like pants base layer system. And there was no, and I was like, well, what season was that guy hunting? And this guy had a late season, like Montana hunt. And I'm like, well, dude, you're buying, I know that influencer, he's a big early, like September archery hunter. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, make sure like you're giving, like taking in the context of what the hunt is and everything. So for context, for a bunch of these lessons learned at least, and then we can go dive into any rabbit hole, is September elk hunting. Where I was at in Idaho, there was it's not 12, 13,000 feet in Colorado. It's more 7,000, 8,000 kind of stuff. And there was a fair bit of 2-track roads and dirt bike trails and things like that. And we got there September 15th and hunted till the 27th or 28th, something like that. So that's at least kind of where I was at before kind of dive into these.
What was your goal from the hunt? Any bull or big bull? Because you said you're like, I want to kill a big bull more than anything. Or was it just like secretly, I want to kill a 6x6?
I do. My goal was 4-point or better, to be honest. I really didn't want to go out there and shoot. I shot a cow last year. Really didn't want to shoot another cow. I wanted my bull, my first bull, and didn't really want it to be a spike. But definitely had a couple days right at the end there where I actually did draw back on a spike. So that was my goal for the hunt. First thing, I'm just going to bounce off you. So it seemed like kind of the 80-20 of a lot of our action was at first and last light in the mornings and evenings. And I kept running into this dilemma of like, man, you're just out, like, we're just out there filled with like piss and vinegar and we just want to go like all day. But we were spiked out, I would say, in elk country. So what I thought and what I kind of set ourselves up with was we like I said, there was a lot of 2-track roads in the bottom, and guys had camps. And I was like, well, let's just backpack up over this ridge, and we can get into this next drainage where it doesn't look like on Onyx or anything. There's much hunting pressure that should be coming through there, and we'll at least be like out there away from people and maybe like in the game every morning. So we would either glass up or hear a bugle or just something to entertain us for at least the first couple hours of the day. And then maybe glass up something like in the evening or something. But midday is kind of like my question. I felt like we kind of were shooting ourselves in the foot where, we're just hiking around. And I'm like, are we bumping elk? Are we doing ourselves a disservice? So talk a little bit about what do guys like to do midday?
What do I do? What do I do what do I do with my hands in the middle of the day?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to be hiking 20 miles a day? Like, should we start hiking? Like,
Just
right.
hike.
Yeah.
Well, and there's, dude, this is classic. And I've talked about this a lot. And there's a bit of a dilemma when you go in that deep, right? Like there's pros and cons, which is I need to get into your point. The first thing you said was like, gosh, you got to get away from people. The more you get away from people, the more you're kind of at odds with like, I can only go as far as my legs can take me. Right. And so when you get away from that truck or that side by side or the, whatever you have, e-bike, I don't care, horse, you are stuck with like this, let's call it a 4-mile circle, which if anyone's hunting in the backcountry is not very big. Like there's 8 herd elk, maybe 2. Right. And so you get into this predicament where you know where the elk are. We're just going to call it the elk. And the elk means like, this is the pocket of elk we have found. If you don't have that, then you can hike all day, go 20 miles and keep searching. But when you get into the backcountry, and this is predominantly like, okay, we're in 5 to 10 miles, doesn't matter. All of a sudden I have this, like, I set up camp and I have this radius that I can go find elk in, right? A lot of times the problem is, if you don't know where the elk are, just cover ground until you do. Like that is like, you're not worried about bumping elk. The problem in your head, this is my guess because I've been there, is like, okay, I have these elk and they're talking in the morning and evening, but I don't know what to do with my hands in the middle of the day because I don't really want to go mess with them, but like, what should I be doing something? I feel this urge. I should be doing something, right? This is very classic, right? You have these elk and you probably shouldn't mess with them. Like, I think the guy who, gets full of piss and vinegar and wants to go mess with them. And like, there are days where it could happen midday, and you hear these podcasts, you're like, man, I hunt elk or I kill most of my elk in the middle of the day. Great. And there are those days where that's going to happen. But honestly, when you are deep in the backcountry and you have one pocket of elk, you kind of have to just deal with boredom. And so much of it, man, I just did this podcast and it's going to come out here in the next few days. I was talking to Jeff Helm and, they went deep into Wyoming and when you hear the story, you're like, it's 1, 2, 3, it made it easy. And what Jeff is really good at is knowing when to strike, right? Knowing, and he made this comment, it stuck with me. It's one of the best podcasts I've done, but it's like, he made this comment about, archery sheep hunter told him killing a sheep with a bow is actually pretty easy. You just have to be able to wait until it's the right moment. You have to choose that like battlefield, right? And this is elk hunting in backcountry scenarios where it's like, you can't just force you shooting an elk wherever you want. You're going to mess it up. So you have to be patient. The hard part is you feel like you're not doing anything. Like this could be days of just like, I'm trying to strike in the morning and evening when they're vocal, they're moving, and in the middle of the day, they're not talking. They're stuck in this timber patch. The wind is swirling. I feel like I need to do something. I should just go in there and challenge bugle. And then you blow them out, and now you're like, crap. No, I don't have a play for tonight. I don't know where more elk are. And so like this is like a super common scenario. And for the most part, you need to sit and just be patient, right? You have to let the situation materialize in a way that's like, I can attack now, right? Just because other people kill elk in the middle of the day doesn't mean you have to force it every middle of the day. There are scenarios like I watch a bull go up in bed in this spot. I'm like, man, midday, the wind's good. Like the thermals are going to be great. Like this is a good move. We can make it happen. So like those will make sense. For the most part, elk hunting can be really boring. With that said, this is like when I go back to like, there's a catch-22 of being deep in the woods where it's like, you don't really have more options. Sure, you could go other directions, look for more elk. My theory is like, if I can cover ground and find different elk, I'm going to. If it makes more sense to be patient and watch this scenario, whether I nap on the mountain and I'm kind of keeping eyes on, or I'm just like listening, there are a lot of reasons to just be patient and watch what materializes. Like, many times I've had elk go in and bed down. The last 3 days, they really haven't done anything. But today, all of a sudden, I see a bull go into that bedding area, or they start piping off, or something, some variable changed that allowed me to say, oh, I'm going to attack. And I'm still gathering information. Sometimes you're like, they get up at 3 p.m. Like, and if you weren't there, you wouldn't know, right? And so there are reasons to stick around. But many times, if I only have one group of elk or a couple elk that I'm hunting, I'll use the middays to go discover something new, right? I'm like, let's just go on a walkabout, right? Maybe we find a midday bugle somewhere, right? And sometimes it is covering, like, let's go check this wallow. Like, we all have a dozen wallows we want to check. So, that's a good time. It's like, hey, let's go check this wallow. And, don't walk yourself into the ground. If you're going 20 miles a day, you're probably going too far. But like, cover some ground, try to find something new. And in my mind, I don't love when I only have one group of elk. To me, that's like, it's not enough. Like, I know I'm going to screw this up and I'm going to need a plan B. Currently, we have no plan B. So in my mind, it's like, okay, let's just try to figure out what plan B is before plan A gets screwed up. And then, we have it. If I have 3 herds of elk, I'm far more patient. I'm like, let's just watch. Let's watch elk be elk. And I think it's really hard for a lot of guys, man. They're like, get in there, got to go fast, I got to cover ground, I got to be a badass hunter, I got to do 20 miles a day. And like, some of the best elk hunters in the world are not doing 20 miles a day. I promise you that. I guarantee it. And so like, you just have to be patient and watch and watch and watch and like wait for the right opportunity. It's like going back to your 80-20 rule, you got to wait for the right 20%. 20% of those encounters it's probably like 10%, but like 20% of those encounters are going to be good. And so like, don't just be fumbling around in the woods covering ground. That's the 80, right? Like, don't be messing around with like these 80% of situations that aren't going to turn into anything. Be looking for the right 20% of opportunities that are going to that you're going to be able to capitalize on. And I think that's kind of the advice. So really, it's like, you don't have to be doing anything. Don't feel like you have to be doing something all the time, because watching elk is doing something. And I think some of the best elk hunters in the world will just sit, get high, watch, get high and watch, even if they're not in striking distance. And I think that's really hard for people too. Just to kind of follow up on what you were talking about. And I know the situation was like, you want to be there, the elk are bugling, you feel like you should be close at morning and evening, but sometimes you're too close. You're like, it's not really, I'm not getting a shot, but I'm also like, I can't figure it out. Sometimes it's like, hey, scoot back and like, let's just see where they go, see what they do. I'm trying to figure out the macro view. And I think oftentimes when you're in those scenarios where it feels like you're trying in the morning and evening, but it's not penciling out, like, it just like, oftentimes, they bugle for 20 minutes, right? I can't see what's going on. I can't hear what, like, they're shutting up pretty quick. So scoot back, try to get the macro. Like, where are they going? What are they doing? Maybe I can get farther away and see what they're doing, right? If they're shutting up 20 minutes after daylight, then, this or that. The other caveat is, and this may, I don't think it contradicts what I just said, but, if you have elk where they're shutting up 20 minutes after daylight and you're just going to hunt them for 10 days in a row, and these are really hard elk to hunt, go find new elk, right? Maybe you spend your entire day, spend your mornings and evenings finding new elk. I see a lot of people, they get so obsessed with the fact they found elk that they don't want to leave them. And these elk are talking in the morning and evening, but it's not working out. Like, for whatever reason, like where they're at's a bad spot, like the wind's bad, they've been pressured, all these things. Sometimes it's like, maybe hunt those in the middle of it, or come back and check on them in the middle of the day, but like focus on something in the prime time, right? 80-20, you're going to find elk in a very small window of the day. don't waste that day on elk that you can't kill. Try to find those. And then maybe like the elk that you're like, oh, I know where these elk are, check them in the middle of the day. Come back, you know where these elk are, right? Come back, bugle in the middle of the day. And one of these days you might, they might rip off in the middle of the day. There might be a hot cow, right? So I don't know if that answers your question, but like sometimes it is inversing what you're putting your effort into in the mornings and evenings. And instead of like, I just feel like I'm not doing anything in the middle of the day. I don't know if that answers it entirely.
It absolutely does. And you touch on a lot of good points and I feel like I hear this from a lot of good hunters, everything's situational. Like
Totally.
you have to look at everything as its own unique, unicorn or whatever, and then always play the high percentage odds. And I like how you brought up the fact that, you will sometimes leave elk to find elk, because again, this is like a game of like blackjack we're playing. Like if that's a low odds, I did that with mule deer. So I hunted high country mule deer in the beginning of September in Colorado. There were times where you glass up a buck and it's like, it's not in a stockable, killable location. Like I'm going to go glass up another deer. So that's not exactly how like elk hunting works, but you can think of it the same way as like, hey, they're going to bust me with the wind, or like that ground is way too thick all around them where they're bedding and feeding, and like we're not going to get close, or it's just not the right time, or fill in the blank. And that's maybe a benefit of looking at situations, just odds. And if you have to leave elk to find elk for a short period of time at least, then sometimes that's what you got to do.
So this year we were, I was with a buddy, and a good buddy of mine. I think he's a pretty good elk hunter, and but he's just, still kind of early in it. And we kind of knew where these elk were going to be. We get up on the ridge, which is like they should be coming up, right? And we kind of work out. Sounds like a good bull way down in the bottom, and then there's a bull right to our left, and he's kind of already up high, and he's bugling, right? Like he rips off. I cow call a couple times, he rips off again. And I looked at him and I said, old me would go chase that bugle. Here's what's going to happen. Old me would go listen, be like, there's an elk right here. I know there's an elk way down there, but like there's an elk right here. I was like, this bull's going to shut up. Like it was early September, and I was like, he's already up in the timber. He's going to shut up in like 3 more bugles maybe. And like I've done this a million times. And I was like, this bull sounds like he's got cows. Let's just listen and wait, right? And so like sure enough, like this bull next to us, I was like, if he comes over, great, I'll cow call a few times. And so we just, a couple calf calls, a couple cow calls. He answered again, and I could tell he was kind of going away. I was like, you're never going to catch that bull. Like he's going up to bed and he's going to shut up. That's what's going to happen. And this takes screwing it up a lot to learn this, but it's like, let's keep listening. So we kind of moved down, and I hear that other bull, and just, you can hear it in his voice. Like he doesn't really care, but he's definitely got cows, and he's coming up. Like he's coming to me. So you could choose the elk that's walking away from you, that's closer and bugling, or the one that's coming up towards you, right? Like, so all we did was slide over 100 yards, and sure enough, this bull bugled all the way right up to us. Ended up calling him in. And yeah, didn't get him killed, but like we called him in well into bow range. Like I had the cows at 22 yards. It's just one of those situations where like choose your battle, right? Don't be patient, let it materialize. The elk that's going away from you is going to be really tough to kill. The elk that's coming towards you, way easier to call in.
Love it. Next one I want to bring up, and this goes into calling, which we just touched on a little bit. So something that I learned was there's a difference between calling, bugling with a bull a couple hundred yards away versus in their bedroom. Huge difference. And before I even get into like the couple stories I have that had me write this down, what are your thoughts there? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would love to hear the story so I have context, but
okay.
Yes, I agree. I think.
Yeah, so what happened was a couple scenarios where we were bugling with bulls. So we did have one day, again, it was kind of that random thing, midday bugle, he just piped off, and we were like, oh, okay. We were down in this bottom trying to get water, and he piped off. He was maybe 500 feet above us, and my thought was like, okay, thermals are rising. We might be okay right here down at the creek, pulling our scent away, but we need to like climb up the drainage and try to get up and around them. But this turned into, and like in the moment, I was like, this doesn't feel right. So he would bugle and we'd bugle back, and then he'd bugle and we'd bugle back. He'd bugle, we'd bugle back. And we were just kind of like playing, ping pong with this bull a little bit.
Marco Polo.
Yeah. And we would, and the undergrowth was super thick, so it was hard to kind of just like run right over there. Tried to keep cutting the distance, and then once we got to what we thought about, 200, 150, just keep calling him, keep him talking, start hitting him with the challenge, start getting fired up and pissed off and raking and doing all the things. We had like probably 2 or 3 times where I was like, okay, like set up, like we did get him fired up to where he'd keep bugling a couple times in a row. But I think this whole time went over like 2 hours, and that bull turns out never really moved from where he was. We just got him all pissed off, worked up, and then we were moving closer to him. And we did get to a point though where we were probably about like 50 or 60 yards, and we saw him like beating the hell out of this little pine tree and getting all fired up, but he was not committing,
Yeah.
And I think we just got him all worked up to where he actually just like, it seemed like he just was tuckered out, and he kind of just like shut up and went up over the ridge, and that was it. Versus another time we were just hiking around still kind of early in the morning, and then this one little drainage bugled down into, and I totally screwed up the setup with this one, but bugled right down into it, like this little draw, and there was a bunch of reprod like right in front of us too. Bugled into it, a bull within like, it's really hard to tell. You learn that too, of like they're facing this way and bugle versus if they're facing to you and bugle, but it sounded like very close, and we were like, oh shit. Well, where we screwed up was we then got closer to him, but then next thing I knew, we were standing in the reprod where you can only see 10 feet in front of you, and I was like, oh wait, this was stupid. The bull then came right in front of us, never had a great look at him, bugled again, and then we heard all these elk kind of fly out of there. We figured he had cows with him or something, but we were in that scenario. I felt like we were right in his bedroom. We bugled at him, and he bugled right back and was like, oh, whoa, like I'm coming. Versus the other bull that was kind of just like bugling back. We bugled to him. I think maybe we were making a mistake of actually cutting that distance. I think in hindsight, when he piped off, just go. Like, what are we doing? Like, just go get in his ass. And then if the situation presents itself where you do need to fire him up to get him to get on his feet a little bit, do that, but do that at, sub 100 yards or something. So that's kind of the couple stories I had for this one.
No, it's good context.
Mm-hmm.
What time of day were either of those?
So the one was like 2:00. The one where we just worked him for a couple hours, and then the other one where I was like right in his bedroom was probably like within an hour after sunrise in the morning.
Okay. Yeah, good context. So yeah, I feel like, no offense, that's kind of a classic faux pas for like the single bull, like the first one. Middle of the day, he probably just bugled from his bed. You kind of were an elk. You got him a little bit fired up. Pretty common. I used to do this all the time. And you get them all fired up. 8 out of 10 times it doesn't work out, and that's fine. Sometimes it works out. I think there's a couple things you could tweak in that scenario, and I'll go like minor tweaks and I'll go major tweaks. So generally speaking, bull bugles from his bed midday. He's probably not super aggressive, and maybe he's just throwing a locate. I'll just try to like mimic him, and see what I can do. Honestly, yeah, get up, get parallel, or get same level as him. And I would probably stay back a little bit. I'm not trying to move in and challenge him unless I really know he's got cows. That kind of usually turns into like him, doing what he did. He's going to bugle. He might rake. He's not that excited. And if you're a really, really good caller, you can probably get him worked up. He's still like, you're still low odds in my mind. And so like And a lot of times he just doesn't want you to get that close to him, right? Like he'll play the game a little bit. He'll talk to you and he may rake if you're raking. And I've got bulls. We did it this year. I got a bull all worked up, like from nothing to super worked up. But, we got it at 60, just never really got a shot. Very difficult to close that last little bit of gap. I usually, two things. When I'm solo, like I'll try to get him raking. And if I can get him raking hard, then I can close the distance. That's been fairly successful for me. It's like I've always struggled with that scenario right there. Like I get him worked up, but like how do you close the distance when he won't come? He's not going to close the last 100 yards, right? And so I'll usually try to get parallel, try to get him raking and get eyes on. And then once I get, if I can get him raking hard, and sometimes they don't, they'll just like kind of half rake. I know now that if he's half raking, this is probably not going to work. In that scenario, I would probably back out and leave him confused nowadays. And like, I just know this is just going to get blown up. I can feel it. Like he's not really that into it. He got a little worked up, but unless he's like really getting aggressive, I'm not overly, I'd rather back out. With that said, if I have two people, if I can keep him talking and the other guy can just slip up silent, I like that scenario where it's like that bull will talk to you if you're 300 yards away, 200 yards away. When you get under 100, he's getting a little suspect. He wants to see something, or, he's like, you turn the shot clock on. You start bugling within 100 yards, you're turning the shot clock on. You have a limited time before he says, all right, I don't like this, I'm out. And so if you stay at 300, you may be able to work. It's a lot longer shot clock. There's still a shot clock, but like your buddy could slip in and try to like work it. I do think you want to be close enough that he can hear you raking, because if you can get him raking, it just change. Like he can't see he can't see when he's raking, so it allows you or whoever shooter to slide in a little bit easier. So like that 200-ish mark. Now, if he's only talking at 300, like you could just keep him talking and slide in and be a ninja. That's a decent play. Those are kind of the two scenarios I would use in that situation. Honestly, why not just go in and do a couple calf calls? Like if I hear a bull bugle, it's early season. Now I kind of either wait, going back to like at 2:00, I may wait till 4:00. I may wait just to like when he's about to get up anyway, and just kind of slide in and do a couple soft cow calls and then wait. And then a couple soft cow calls. Like he's going to come investigate that. If he's laying by himself, like, and you get within 200 and, like, is he going to stand up and come over at noon? Probably not. Probably doesn't care. But what happens with the cow call or say a calf call, we come in and calf call, he's probably not going to get up right away. If he doesn't, he may not care. Like people are like, well, I called and he wouldn't come. Like, dude, that happens. Like sometimes they just do not care. But if you slide in, you calf call, there's no shot clock. Like you can wait, right? And then you can wait and judge that. Maybe like throw out a bugle at 5 or 6, like see what he does, right? Like, and then now it's easier to call that bull in when he's all going to get up anyway. Like he maybe just doesn't want to get up. Maybe he's just going to sit there. He doesn't care. And so I think sometimes you can try to force a situation when that bull doesn't want it. And that makes it hard. And I tend to lean these days more to like, how do I keep this bull in play? Instead of like, let's force the situation. I used to, be the bull in the china shop, like just force it. I'll go find a new elk. And I just feel like it doesn't work out nearly as much. And so you can kind of be a little bit softer hands around that. And then I think that kind of plays into the next scenario where it's like morning time, elk are headed to bed. Yeah, you got him to bugle, you got aggressive, you got into 100, you challenged him, and he came in. But again, it's like it's going to blow up, right? And so many times I would rather, this is tough. And we just talked about how it's like when you're dogging elk and trying to call, you're not choosing the battlefield. The battlefield is so important. When I say battlefield, I mean your setup, right? Like you're moving and you're moving through the trees, like, oh, this would be a great spot. And you like set up and try to call. He's already 200 yards. So you like move up, and now you get to the reprod, and you're like, God, like I only see 10 yards, and like I got to make it work, right? And it's very, very difficult because you don't get to choose the battlefield. And when you can choose the battlefield, that's way better. Now the downside is like that bull's going to move in, maybe goes and beds in that reprod, right? And like all of a sudden he shuts up and he won't do anything. But if you now you have all day to figure out where the battlefield is, right? You're like, he's bedded in there or roughly here, or this is where he came from. Now we could choose, like, you get to slow it down a little bit. Now the catch 22 is like there's probably 14 of your best friends that are going to try to hunt him that night. So like you're trying to pressure that situation. You're like, I got to get him killed right now. These are all variables you have to weigh. To me, I really like trying to choose the battlefield if I can. Like, where's the best setup? Where's the pinch point, right? Like, where's this bull going to go? You don't always know that, but I do feel like a lot of times when you're too aggressive, I hate to say it, I do think people should be fairly aggressive in comparison to what they think they can be. With that said, you got to being in the right place is going to make everything easier. And when you're dogging herds and trying to call them back to you, and then they get in that thick stuff, it just makes it very difficult for that to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Would you say, again, this is situation dependent, but there's a lot of situations where starting with cow call, calf call is just a little bit of a safer play sometimes, because then you can still kind of fall back to like, okay, I'm going to bugle at him, versus if you start with bugles or like, a hard challenge bugle or something, you're kind of like, this is either going to work or not.
Yeah, I would say, 10 years ago, I think like I challenged bugle a lot of elk, and I would say 10 years ago it worked well. I think if you're hunting Colorado or Idaho, I don't know, like it ever, like I think it works less than it works. Like I think we're past that point. Does it work? Yeah, absolutely. Are there situations where that lure works? Yes. Do I think that for the most part you're gonna be a bull in a china shop and spook more elk than you're going to call in? 100% yes. And I think that's very true 2025 forward, right? Like, you're hunting high pressure elk, you need to just wear kitty gloves a little bit. And a lot of that is just like, you got to time it. I think it's mostly timing. It's like, you got to catch them in a pinch point. You got to catch them whenever, they've just been called at, they've been pressured. Like, I think a challenge bugle has a place in the toolkit, but I think it's the right day, the right time. And when people say like that doesn't work, I disagree. I actually do disagree with that. But I think there are very few situations I'm in per year where that's the tool to use. And there's a classic saying, when all you have is a hammer, all you see is nails. And I think there's a lot of dudes walking around with Phelps bugle tube that are trying to hit every nail on the head. And I think it's gonna make elk hunting frustrating.
I think that's a good way to frame it. Yeah. This bugle tube's a hammer and everybody's out there.
Yeah,
just
trying to use it.
Pounding on nails. But that's, I see that, but I think it's okay, because that's where learning a lot. Because I felt like that was me a lot, at least for the beginning of the hunt, to where we were hearing bugles, we were seeing elk, and like we were having like, we kind of had this weird thing in our head where it was like, this might take 3 or 4 different setups before we arrow one. So we were almost like counting down, like, oh, okay, that was the second setup we screwed up. Yeah. Like only one more, then we'll get it. So we were okay with like, doing that, getting close, making. The
problem is,
happen.
I think it's like 1 in 20.
Yeah, I think so.
So if that's a lot of elk to find. You know what I mean? Like, if you can find 20 herds of elk, then I think it'll work. And like, it does work. Like, today, I will say, there's a lot of people say, put the damn bugle tube away. I was like, I disagree, man. I think it works. I think it is it has to be right day, right time, right everything, right? And you got to be really good at reading temperatures and like just understand it, read the room. Like, to me, is like, if you're going to run around with that hammer, you got to read the room and know when to use it. That bull's got to be pretty fired up. I just don't think most people understand that, like, just because a bull is with cows does not mean he's ready to fight you. Like, and so much of it, I think, is like, if he's the only bull, I just don't think he really cares. Like, it's different when you have a big herd bull and he's got satellites running close and he's been, fighting them, and like, there's like a lot of action, right? I think most scenarios are like, there's a 6 point and maybe there's a couple raghorns following him, but like, he ain't worried about them. Like, he's not worried about fighting. And like you come in here and say, I want to fight you. He's never seen you. Like he doesn't like, he's not in that. Right. Whereas if he's been fighting bulls all night and like it's been a battle and like there's multiple satellites that are like legit contenders, it's a little bit different. He's all worked up. He's ready to fight. That's a good time to use that hammer. But like I think most of the time, dudes were rolling in there when it's like these elk have been pretty dang quiet, and he's kind of just got his little harem tucked away over here. Like he don't care. He's not. He's not like, oh man, I'm gonna. And even if you get him worked up, like he's just getting suspicious.
Yeah. And I think reading the temperature is key. And it's interesting too, because dude, we did the first few days. Heard some bugles, and we went up to glass at this one morning, and right below us it sucked. Like I would have never thought elk would be right here, but thermals were going right down to them. But I heard like some crashing, and I look over, and there was two like good 5 points beating the hell out of each other, fighting, and it was like really cool to see. And
That's
then
cool.
seeing that, and then hearing some more bugles, we were getting aggressive, and I think it was a decent, like a good thought at the time, just based on the temperature and like you said, everything we were seeing. It's just so much has to go right, and there's so many variables, and that's what makes it so tough, but also so fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like, it depends on like what you're after, right? If you're only after herd bulls versus like satellites, a lot of times, man, a couple cow calf sounds and like satellites coming running right over. It's really easy play.
Yeah. And I like how you mentioned before that you will sometimes leave elk to find elk, again, to give yourself those options, because it's going to take multiple setups, and not even just within the context of trying to challenge bugle them, just, to arrow an elk in general. So trying to find multiple groups of elk to give yourselves options is a really, like, I'm hesitant to say this, like, I mean, it is true. That is a good play, and that's what we were trying to do as well. And I've seen that over and over, because it does take multiple opportunities. But Cody, there's somebody like listening that's like, I was out in Colorado for 8 days and I had a hard time finding like one decent bull or like elk in general. So that's what's like so tough. Like, I don't know, what would you say to that guy that's like, you want me to find multiple groups of elk? Like,
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time finding one.
Yeah, I mean, like, it depends on where you hunt too. But I do think that, like, finding the right elk, right? Like, and maybe it matters more of just like finding killable elk is kind of the key, right? And you got to hunt hard. Like, you got to look hard, and sometimes you got to bump elk to find elk. Like, I think there's a lot of 101 hunters that walk around in the woods thinking there's an elk around every tree, and like they're just tiptoeing and using their little, hoochie mama, and like this is not right. And so you got to cover ground. You got to move fast. You got to look big. You got to, if you can't see, you got to call. Like, you got to locate. You got to find elk. You like find elk any way you can. And I think that's a huge learning lesson for a lot of people early, is like, you got to cover some ground to find some elk. These things aren't around every tree. They're not deer, where it's like deer could be anywhere and everywhere. Like, there's just little pockets of deer. I mean, elk are big animals that cover a lot of ground, and like, there may be one group in a drainage, right? And so you have to check a different drainage. Man, you could go 2-3 drainages and not see elk, right? And so you kind of, once you learn to cover ground, once you start seeing elk sign, right? Like, there's probably elk there. And like, I think here's another misconception is like, I'll take the Colorado hunter you mentioned. We had this year where it was like, there's elk sign here, but we're not hearing any elk. And so what do? They assume they're gone, right? And it's like, man, there's elk sign here. There's got to be elk. Like, I just would lean on that. Just because they're not talking doesn't mean there's not elk there. And I feel like sometimes, I tell people to cover ground, right? You find elk sign though, like, double tap. Why? Those elk are there. They don't just disappear. I mean, they do just disappear, but like at the same time, like I would really like look into that. We had a spot this year where, God, I couldn't buy a bugle, right? But we know there's elk there. We're seeing tons of sign, and like, you start to learn that like how much sign you see really matters. Like, if am I seeing like, oh, I saw a track, or like, man, this looks like elk have been living in here. There's elk here. There's multiple groups of elk in here, and this is a good pocket, right? And we would just blind call setup. Like, we're just setting up and doing soft cow calls sequences for 20, 30 minutes. And then here comes a silent bull, right? most people would have just, there's no elk here, right? And I called, I don't know, it was like 4 or 5 in a row, called in silent bulls. Like they're all, smaller bulls, but like at the end of the day, like there's elk there. Just because they're not playing the game you want to play doesn't mean they're not there. And I think that sometimes is just finding elk. And sometimes they're, it's not going to be a Primos video and they're not going to be screaming, but like, there's a lot of elk that'll come in quiet. Right. And if you can, and I mean, I remember thinking about it, you were talking about every, 3 or 4 setups, you're going to like every 3 or 4 encounters, you should arrow one. I think if you're in elk country and you're seeing elk sign, if you say every 10th setup, we're going to call one in, like it's going to happen. I think if you can have like 10 great setups, you're going to call in an elk. And maybe every 2 or 3, like, like something goes wrong, or every 2 or 3, good encounters, you might get a shot, right? Opportunity. And I think that's, one of the things to consider is like not always going to be bugling, not always going to be big rut action. Sometimes like one of the bulls we killed this year came in absolutely completely silent and we shot him. I caught a glimpse of his butt and then he got arrowed, right? Like, and I was the caller. That's just that's how it should work. That's how it happens way more, And so just like when you understand that, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I do feel like everyone thinks every bull comes screaming in and it's some big event.
Yeah. Well, that's what we all dream about, right?
That's fair.
And I think that's so, like, if we could clip that last part where it's like Cody Rich just said 10 times, 10 times for you. It might take to arrow an elk. Obviously, if one comes in, if a good bull comes in screaming on your first try, like kill that thing, like, but I think that's such a good little nugget there, because that could help somebody when they're out there and they screw up the first couple chances they have. Like it can at least be like, okay, like we're not
10.
Yeah. Like, but just the thought of like, okay, this is going to take more than 1 or 2 tries to have it come together. Like it might keep you in a positive mindset versus after that first setup, you kind of screw up to where can't figure it out. Should have did it. Should have killed one. Should have did it right there. Should have been tagged out. And then that'll just eat at you, man. And that can affect the rest of the hunt.
Oh, and, it's like, I think one of my superpowers is definitely like, I just do not care. And like, you almost have to be this way. I do think there's a lot of dudes that get so wrapped around the axle. Like they're just like, I got to get this thing killed. And, they're the guy that's only had 1 or 2 encounters. And I could care less, right? Like I call very carefree. I'm fairly aggressive in like movements, and like if we bump this up, we bump this up. I do not care. Like I do not care. And you can't, or when you have that mentality of like, I don't care if this falls apart, you're dangerous, right? Because if you're, oh God, there's an elk, like we got to get a shot. Like you're going to screw this up, guaranteed. You know what I mean? Like, and I think you have to have a lot of those encounters. It's just like we talk about being in the red zone. You got to be in the red zone a lot, right? You got to know how to act in the red zone, because if you've never been in the red zone and you're like trying to get a shot, you're just like, you're panicked, like, like, dude, move up. Like all the time, like, hey, you gotta force this last 1%. Those little things, and it takes experience. You got to get in the red zone a number of times. But don't think that every time you're going to get in the red zone, you're getting a shot, because it's just not the truth, right? And I think that's important to your point. Like, you got to have a little bit of carefreeness in that red zone. You got to know you're going to screw it up. Like, don't put so much pressure on yourself to make a shot happen every time you get in the red zone, because we get oftentimes, get in the red zone, it doesn't work out. Like, just that's a fact of life. Get used to that. And like, you have to like also just brush it off. It's a bad golf shot, man. Like you can't care about your last shot. Like, hey, that was fun. That was cool. And my hunter this year, very much was like, man, it just, you could tell he was getting frustrated thinking it was him. And it was like, we only had 2 or 3 encounters, basically once I started just set up, let's just do blind blind calling sequences. Like one time there was an elk like 10 yards behind me. I didn't even hear it, It's like, it was funny. My buddy's like, I think he texted me, he's like, bull coming from the left. And like, I just moved slightly and it was like 10 yards behind me. I was like, well, you could have said it was right next to me, but and that happens, right? And he was getting frustrated. He's like, it's not working out, and I could tell. And even to the one we ended up shooting, he was like, man, that bull, I saw it come in, and then like there just wasn't a shot. He's like, God, I suck at this, and then like all of a sudden he's like, I look, and he's still right there. And that is how it works. Like we had 4 or 5 blind calls in the red zone, right? So we're in the red zone and it just wasn't working out. Like you have to just know that's how it is, right? Like that. And sometimes it's going to work out, sometimes it's not. But like I think a ton of people get so nervous in the red zone that they screwed up, and like you just get comfortable. And like that's a part of growing as an elk hunter. And this is my advice to you is like, don't focus on killing the elk. Focus on really good execution. Focus on getting in the red zone and being comfortable in the red zone, because that's going to make you a killer. Killing an elk doesn't make you a killer. Like being deadly in the red zone makes you a killer. What do you want to be great at? Like, do you want to be the guy that's got, ice in his veins when he's in the red zone? Absolutely. That's who you want to be. So go get in the red zone 100 times. Like, don't worry about killing an elk. Like, get good at that. Get good at like knowing when to use what tool, right? Like, what do I want to do here? Don't overthink it. Just be like, hey, here's the 3 tools I have in my tool chest. And I think it's important. You can have too many. So it's like, should I use the calf call? Should I use the bugle? Right? Like, just that simple thing of like, or do I use no call? Do I like, those are the 3. Don't overthink it, because you can easily be like, should I do this? Should I do that? No, get like good at three moves. I have 3 good plays, and like you execute these plays until you're really good. And then we can add plays, and then get comfortable in the reds. Like, like I always think of it as like, what skill do you want to have as an elk hunter? Because too many dudes are like, man, I just need to kill an elk. I need to kill an elk. It's like, focus on the skills. The stack and racks will come. Stack and racks will come if you can just build elk hunting skills.
Yeah, I love it. And I think something that's kind of coming in my head is like, you just got to focus on becoming a better elk hunter versus somebody that, I don't know how to put this, is filling up their living room. You know what I mean? Like, you got to focus on hunting more than killing.
Right.
I don't
well,
does that make sense? The skills versus
the running example. Yeah. You're like, dude, I want a bunch of medals. Do you want medals or do you want discipline?
Okay, there we go.
Do you want like when you want to win in the running space, like you don't just focus on like, oh, I go win. Like I just need to do that. You're like, no, I need to like create the skills, build the foundation, and like just elk hunting is not that different. Like create the skills, focus on. It's going back to like, if I do 10 well executed call setups, I'm gonna have it's gonna work, right? Like that's just, so I just have to do it 10 times. Like focus on the inputs, not the outputs. Too many people focus on the outputs.
Exactly. There we go. You said that way better than I could. So running, for example, and I've said this to people, like if your goal is to just get that marathon medal and that's it, it's actually so hard you probably won't get there if that's the only thing you think about. But if you can start to embrace your like 3-mile easy run that you have to do on a Tuesday morning at 4 a.m. before work, if you can embrace those moments, if you can embrace like you get together and run with a buddy and just like have a good run like on a Sunday afternoon, if you can embrace that, embrace like the whole journey, then and feel good about yourself when you're like, man, 3 weeks ago I couldn't run this fast and now I'm running this fast. Next thing you know, you're going to be crossing the finish line and you're going to have that medal and you're going to be like, oh my God, this was awesome. Same thing with elk hunting.
Totally. And like, I mean, like another good running example is like, so you want a per minute mile, right? If you only focus on like, how do I increase, like, if I just run faster, you're not going to get there. Promise you. You have to slow down to speed up. You got to focus on a lot of different things to be great. Right. And so I think, elk hunting is very similar. Focus on the skills, focus on at bats, focus on getting in the red zone. And then like call things wins. Confidence is a huge, huge piece of it, right? When you're confident, you're deadly. And, the old saying, killers kill, but you have to have confidence to be that person. And so like, if you go out in the woods, I'll just use you as an example this year. It's like, man, I struck out. And then next year, like, God, maybe I'm not a good elk hunter, right? It's like, if you could just focus on small wins, you're like, man, I just want to get, bulls to respond. I want to find elk. Like, dude, and I was talking to Nate Illingsworth and, it's like, hey, focus on the confidence of finding elk. This year you found a ton of elk, right? Like you proved to yourself that you can find elk. That's more important than did you kill an elk. Cause like all of a sudden you stacked a skill, because finding elk is one of the most important skills of killing an elk, right? Like if you can't find elk, you ain't killing them. So, being able to just find elk, that's a skill. Focus on that. And then like, okay, now I know how to get close to elk. Like I can get in the red zone. You're like, man, last year, was in the red zone once. This year I was in the red zone 6 times.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're shifting what you're calling your win to these other things for right now in the short term, I'm not saying dismiss like getting a good bull on the ground. Like obviously that's what we want. But if you're shifting your focus to these things, you're accomplishing these micro wins, you're building your confidence along the way. And then that's going to get you to the quote finish line versus if the whole time you might be getting these micro wins, but you're not like taking it all in and you're still focused on the bull at the end of the finish line, you're never going to let your confidence build because you're only going to have that confidence build from doing. So just focus on those micro wins, feel better, get positive momentum, and then that keeps you in the game.
And the other thing about that too is like, I think going back to like when you have one tool that you use, if you focus on all these micro wins, you're developing your gut intuition. And what you really want is gut intuition. That's what killers have, right? They know when, like what you should be focused on is like understanding when to attack, when not to attack. Because the best elk hunters in the world know when to attack. That's the skill. They're not like, I can hear any bugle and run up and challenge every bull, and that's not the skill they have, right? So like, what you want gut intuition of when to make a move and when not to. That only comes from experience. That's the thing you can't learn, is like knowing how to act and when. And so like focus on like, man, I need encounters to build gut intuition. I need to think about those. I need to understand what happened, what didn't, dude. Small after action reviews, just going through every encounter you had, I think is really important. It's like what I did for many, many years of like, okay, what went wrong here? How could I, have done that differently? Going back to the map and understanding like, you should go back every encounter you had this year. Look at the map. How could I have done that better? What did the map say? Because you weren't thinking about the map. I guarantee it. You were like, there's a bugle. We go get bugle. And like, no offense, but like that, I did that a lot of years. And then you go back to the map, you're like, shit, if we would have like done this, we would have came from this side. Like, look how open it is here on the satellite view, right? Like you're like that after action is going to develop that gut intuition. Because the next time you hear a bugle, you're going to look at your map and be like, where's a better battlefield, right? Like, where's the best battlefield? Do I wait till this evening? Is this evening a good time? Did I see any dudes? Is there any other people in here? Do I have a little bit of time? All these things, like that's what you develop over years.
Yep. And I wasn't in the military, but no different than
Right.
what those guys do. They do like a post-op for everything that they do. Just huge, whether successful or not, huge, like what worked, what didn't work, what could we do better next time?
Yeah. 100%. I think that's harder for people to do than you would think. I don't know why.
Yeah, because people don't want to like audit themselves and talk about the things that they did wrong. They just want to assume that everything they did was right and it was the elk that were stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think everything has a trade-off, going back to like this whole, like, going super deep, it's fun. But that has everything has a trade-off. And I think when you like look at it from that lens, you're like, okay, well, looking at where you hunted, like looking at like going back and saying like, how could I have done that differently? Where were the elk? Like how did I, like all these little things that make you a great elk hunter, it's woodsmanship, but like you get that from screwing it up a whole bunch.
Yeah. So Cody, before we wrap up, I appreciate your time and everything, but I do want to hear about, I saw you, I don't know everything you got into this fall, but your hunt with Jaden Bells was awesome. I loved listening to that episode. You guys killed a couple of nice bulls, and I kind of want to hear a little bit about that hunt up in BC for your goat.
Yeah.
Dude, that just looked so epic. Like, can you just like talk a little bit about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. A friend of mine, Jay Nichols, he texted me. I was on a run and he texted me. And dude, like for context, goat's kind of been one of those dream hunts, like maybe more than sheep. Honestly, just feels more attainable. And so I had been shopping for a goat hunt. Like that was the first hunt I'd ever really purchased. Right. And it was like, a few years ago, my buddy and I were like, man, looking at goat hunts at Sheep Show and all that. And it's funny because like they just skyrocketed in price and it felt kind of unattainable. And so Jay texted me one day and he's like, hey, you know anybody that wants a goat hunt? I was like, yeah, how much? Because it had been in my head. And he said the price. I was like, yeah, I do. I was like, yeah, screw it. And he's like, well, it's going to be like, it's a new area. he's like, I would love for you to go because like it's kind of a scout mission, right? Like it's like we've never done this, no one's hunted it in a number of years, like blah blah blah. And I was like, heck yes, I'm in. Like this is like my, and like a part of me, nothing against guided hunts, but like a part of me just doesn't want to show up to Alaska, have somebody like, oh, here's where we go to shoot the goat, and like you go up there and shoot it. And so like I was pretty stoked about it. And so long story short, we had planned this hunt. We actually videoed the whole thing, and yeah, more on that. So it's going to be an epic film. But it was kind of a testing ground too. So backstory, I'm developing a smartwatch for the hunting industry.
I was going to ask you about this as well. So
feel free. This was like a no-brainer because it was like, cool, like we can get some epic footage. We can like test the watch. We can do like, get some of that hardcore mountain hunting stuff. And dude, it was all of those things. It was an adventure and a half. I don't know how much I could say about like how to get in there, but like, let's just say planes, trains, automobiles, canoes, like there was some boat thievery, like there was like all of this, like all of the things that are an adventure. And in that podcast with Jaden, we were talking about this, like getting into Wyoming was like, you have all these unknowns, right? And in BC, it was very much that, like, it was like all these unknowns you have to like check off along the way. And like, there's like some risk things, like there's like, okay, this is going to be sketchy. Like we know that's going to be sketchy. We know this is going to be sketchy. And like, there's just the sides of things like, we had to cross a huge glacier, and we had to like get across this like pretty gnarly river thing. And like, all these things are like add to the adventure. And before you ever get to the hunt, right? Like, and that's the cool thing about a goat hunt is like, like you still have to get there, right? And then we get there and, first day, absolutely gorgeous. And it's like beautiful. And then instantly, I think it was like that night, rain and socked in for like days. And like, like it was only like a 4-day hunt, 4 or 5, I don't know what day we killed on, but it was like, it felt like one of those really, really long hunts. And all of this kind of came off the tail of Alaska, where my buddy Craig and I were in Alaska, 10-day hunt. We got to hunt 3 days. And it was just like, I spent a ton of time in the tent. And it was like, it felt like Alaska 2.0, where it's like you're fogged, socked in, stuck in the tent. You're like, dude, I just want to get out and see. And so it had that like adversity to it during the hunt. We actually didn't see goats until like well into the hunt. And we picked up some goats and watched a bunch of nannies and kids. And then we, supposed to finally breaks. We see the same nannies and kids we'd seen before. And we're like, all right, let's hike out to this point. Like this was finally getting to the glassing knob we wanted the whole time, which is like, multiple days into this. And I think we made it like 50 yards in that direction. And we just kind of come around this corner. And I was like, oh, there's a goat right there. And so we like drop down and, find this Billy. We watch him for quite a while, make sure it's a Billy, make sure everything. And it was like all the things were like, man, this is like a perfect scenario. He bedded down. And I was like, oh, I can get like under 300, like right there, no problem. Like, so all the things to work out. Long story short, yeah, we ended up getting him killed and had a gnarly pack out, gnarly adventure, and I think that's like the mountain goat to me is the pinnacle, because it's just like such a big adventure. And like maybe sheep is the same. I'm sure sheep is the same way if I ever get to do it. But it's like goat hunting is. I feel like you would go into some of the coolest country, the most beautiful country I've ever seen, and like you get all these adventure sides of it. It was an all-time epic hunt. So highly recommend it. So I think Jay actually sold out for a couple of years, but I was like, yeah, I would do that one again for sure.
That's awesome, dude. I've heard so much good things about BC, like how beautiful it can be. Like, I mean, it's just so big and vast, and like, I don't know when or how I'm going to do it, but I want to get up there for something, at least like a bear hunt. Like I have a buddy that did a black bear hunt. Like that was just so fun that he did just to get up there.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, like, and so Jay's got this new area and he does a bunch of black bear hunts in there. I'm going to try to go next year. I do have an Alaska tag next year too. So I would love to get up and go like archery hunt some of this area that he's got. He's got an amazing area. And like, dude, that's the thing is like BC it's crazy. It's so big and so beautiful. Like some of the photos we got from this trip are like absolutely insane. The footage is going to be insane. Like it's crazy cool country. And like, dude, to me, it's always been the thing about hunting. I'm not like chasing like a 29 or anything, but like the places hunts take you. And even in Alaska, I went to Alaska this year for sick of blacktail, and like just man, I went like all the places hunting takes you, right? Like it's like so beautiful. You wouldn't be there anyway. And like it's just the adventure side of it is like, I don't know, love it.
Yeah, totally. So what can you say about this watch that I seen you posting about? Because I'm pretty interested.
Yeah. So I guess long story short, I mean, if anybody wants, go check out. We're getting super close, and I said some stuff on Dan Staten's podcast. He twisted my arm into saying in August, and then I got absolutely blown up about it. So like we've kept it pretty hush, just because like the timing of everything is trying to figure it out. And I didn't ever want to say anything before, if it was going to be longer. Like it's been this thing that I've been secretly working on for almost 3 years now, and like not knowing when everything would be ready. There's just like a lot of moving parts. And so we're getting super close. I would say maybe by the time this comes out. So November 1st, we're going to do a big reveal, and we'll be able to show kind of like the actual watch, and get the look. I guess for backstory, we did win like some fancy international design award, which I think is hilarious because I'm just like some redneck from Montana who made Apple. And like,
yeah.
Which is like the whole.
I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying like I can't believe you're doing this.
Which like is funny because like I fought all of these. Like we went through multiple designers, and I fought these designers on so many things, and like. For us to win, it's so comical in retrospect because you're like, I fought every one of these high end designers, and I'm like, no, that looks stupid, like we're just like, I wasn't going for polished look, right? And so it'll be cool because that's going to come out November 1st. We're going to drop. We're going to be doing a ton of beta testing. We are doing beta testing still, but like we do a ton throughout the end of the year. It's going to launch early 2026. We may do some pre-sales and in the end of 25, but yeah, look, essentially we'll be shipping product early 26. So you're gonna get a look at it here pretty soon. And if anybody is interested, if you wear a Garmin and you're more interested in something that's like built for hunters, I recommend jumping on the email list. I actually literally going to send out an email right after we finish this to update those guys. So yeah, if anyone is interested, if you're a watch guy and you're like, man, there's a few ways we could improve upon this situation, like, and you feel like I do, then you're probably going to be very interested in what we.
Where can people find it?
Bridgerwatch.com.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Cody, I appreciate your time and everything. Where can people find you? And I mean, first of all, you have done podcasting for how long? Like you've got to be one of the OGs, right? For hunting podcasts.
Yeah.
At least. Me,
Jay Scott, and Brian Call all started the first podcast within a week or two of each other, which was April of 2015. So yeah, wow. 10 years ago.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And
so
what?
Yeah, I guess if people want to find me, The Rich Outdoors is kind of my personal podcast. I talk about entrepreneurship, lifestyle design, hunting, like kind of all the things I'm interested in, the people I'm interested in. And then if you want to hear like hardcore elk hunting content, the Elk Hunt podcast is something we started a few years ago now. And like, I love nerding out about elk hunting. So if anybody's like wants to hear more elk hunting content, check out the Elk Hunt podcast.
Perfect. That's why I brought you on today.
Yeah. So, right.
Yeah. Appreciate everything. Dude, I love your passion for hunting, the way you just tell stories, the way you can help educate people, your entrepreneurship mindset, just all the things. So yeah, again, I can't thank you enough for hopping on early in the morning today, working around my work schedule. So I really appreciate it.
Hey, I guess, I would love to post this to the Elk Hunt podcast side too. So if obviously if our listeners want to check out what you do, like what are you about and why should people listen?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So this is Run the Rack Outdoors podcast. So I started Run the Rack. I guess I'm like, this is going to be like episode 34, 35, something like that. So I started back in, I think the first episode dropped at the end of March, April, something like that. So big thing that I wanted to put out there was I'm just so passionate about the backcountry hunting and obviously, so running too. So running is kind of my thing. So Run the Rack's like a little bit of a play on words, Run the Rack. But also too, I look at it as, dude, when I feel like I run the rack, so to speak. That is me going into a hunt, leaving no doubt, on the hunt, giving everything I got, just a disciplined way of doing not just hunting, dude, everything we do. So I'm also a huge fan of personal development. So I'm all about just the getting better every single day. And I have a ton of personal development books behind me as well as hunting books. And that's just the content that I like to share and put out there to just help guys all just be better every day, better in the mountains, better in the woods, and just better at life, better in fitness, just constantly all that good stuff. So I felt a little bit of a calling. I don't have anybody helping me. All these things I just figured out on my own, started a blog website, started a podcast, bought this equipment, and don't really know what I'm doing. But dude, I have enjoyed every single bit of it. So just as much of a passion, well, maybe almost as much. My number one's the backcountry mountain hunting. I love it. I love it so much. I'm actually from Pennsylvania, literally moved to Boise, Idaho. That's where I am now because I love this so much. And I just want to be in the mountains as much as possible. So carrying all the content with me. But point is, my other passion is I love good, deep conversations with people. And I think that's why I've really enjoyed this podcast as well. And also, too, just getting a random DM from a random guy being like, hey, man, I had a guy message me earlier this year saying he picked up a deer tag here in Idaho. And he was just like, can I pick your brain on some gear? And I'm like, dude, absolutely, man. Like, this is what I love to talk about. I gave him my cell phone number and just kind of like shared some things that work for me. So I just love good conversations with people, learning, connecting, and then and just getting better every day. So that's what we're about. What I'm about here. I say we as if it's more than a one-man show, but that's all we got.
You and your headphones.
Yeah, right, exactly. But if people want to follow along, so yeah, Run the Rack Outdoors podcast. It's on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. My YouTube channel is actually just my name, Weston Homa. And not only do I have all the podcast episodes, but I have a couple other playlists that are essentially just my hunt films. And I really have a passion for just the whole idea of a film. Always loved watching those Go Hunt films, just how like, and Meat Eater growing up, just how you can see the passion in all those films and everything. So I put out my hunt films on there. And then I also put out these videos on these races I've done. Again, like I said, big runner. I do ultras. I do marathons. This past summer, I ran a 2:48 marathon at a marathon called Grandma's Marathon in Duluth, Minnesota. And that got me my ticket to Boston. So if you guys want to follow along, I'll be running the Boston Marathon in April. And then I have a bunch of ultras too I'm going to plan out. So I've done okay in the ultra world. Locally, I was, I guess, getting out there a little bit back in Pennsylvania. But then I got really humbled, my 100-miler. My knee totally blew up and still on the mission for my 100-mile buckle. I made it to mile 80. I was at like the front of the pack. My ego probably pushed me way too hard in that race. And I learned 100-milers are just different.
Yeah.
But, it's okay. I didn't want to go out there and just walk it. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what I'm about. I wanted to give it my all. And my knee blew up. It's a long story, but I took a DNF. And anyway, that's what I share a lot too. A lot of my running and fitness and things like that. And that's what I love talking to guys about.
We need to figure out a way to get the Bridger watch to be in the Boston Marathon. That would be pretty epic, man. Like, we need to get one of these things early.
I will, dude. I'm all over. I love the concept of it too. I feel like there's still, the training for hunting. There's a whole industry for it and stuff, obviously. But like something like that, that's unique, that's new, and I can see a lot of value in that. So
yeah, and I think that's one of the things we built our own operating system, and we built it around offline mapping, right? So like, to me, it was like Garmin was great, but like really lackluster in the mapping capabilities. But for the record, we built one of the best fitness watches too. And so like, that's, a huge piece of what all of these, that's why I got into the smartwatches. It was for the fitness side. I want to track my fitness, track my sleep, track my, all that stuff. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people, it'll come out more, but it's like, yeah, there's a ton of like all the fitness capabilities. So as a runner, would love to have you using this thing, testing this thing. We're here to build the absolute best product, like, end of conversation. So, and I think, the more people I talk to, the more I think improvement is possible with what's available. So, the run side is like pretty well dialed. I think a lot of the crossover things like the Hyrox or the CrossFit or the Mountain Tough, like those things could be improved with a smartwatch. But yeah, would be super stoked to have some content from the Bridger Watch and the Boston Marathon. That's pretty sweet.
I mean,
Congrats on that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we can talk more after. But seriously, guys, check out that this watch. It's gonna be, because this episode will be out beyond November 1st, maybe like the week after or something like that. But take the fitness seriously, guys. Like, I mean, like I said, there is a whole industry now of like training for hunting and the mountain athlete and stuff. But I think, I mean, I take it very seriously. Like, obviously, like I'm doing these races and stuff, and I developed like a love for running in itself. But like, dude, I take the fitness and the endurance and everything seriously for these hunts. Like, I was packing out my mule deer weekend before last, and the whole time I'm just like, God damn, dude, I work so hard, and I still feel like, I could do more. Like, God, this is so hard. And just how I was running around all September, it's like, take it seriously. Like, I'm not saying you have to have a smartwatch to get in shape, but like, I do, dude. I want to pick up every good tool that I can because I track my lifts, I track all my runs. I'm constantly looking how to get better and everything, versus, I don't know, it just seems like a lot of the training for hunting industry is just like, take this pre-workout and then go arrow 6-point bull. And it's like, well, if you really want to build fitness, you really want to, become a student of these things, like there's more to it than that. And take it seriously.
Yeah, I mean, like I take fitness. My fitness journey is interesting, but I do think that like longevity to me is like, man, I don't like my buddy Mark Livesay, right? Dude's still 9 miles deep and he's 60 years old. Like that's my new goal, and those things. But I think like from your point, like do hard things in life, especially in your 20s, man. Do really hard things and figure out how tough you can be, like from a mental toughness perspective, because like elk hunting will chew you up and spit you out, and like if you don't have the mental toughness and the grind. And that doesn't come from doing 1 week a year. Like mental toughness comes from doing hard things all the time. And so for me, it's like, man, focus on that. Like do hard things. It's good for you.
Absolutely. It gives you confidence out in the elk woods. If you know you can run, however many miles, doing that 1,000-foot climb to where you heard that elk bugle. I'm not saying it's going to be the easiest thing to do, but you will have a little bit more activation energy of like, okay, I've given myself evidence I can do hard things.
Yeah.
Where that bull is, that's going to be hard to get to. But I have become the person that can do hard things. Let's go kill the bull. Versus if that's the hardest thing you've ever done, you're going to be like, shit, should we just, let's just wait. Let's just try and call him to us. But trust me, it doesn't work.
Cody said, choose your battlefield. I choose the one in the flat ground.
Right. Yeah. Why can't they just come right down here to the truck?
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, talk all day on that. But yeah, that's my point.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks again.
All right, man. Thanks for hopping on. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next one. See ya. Hey, if you like that episode, please share it with a friend, share it on your story, and give the podcast a rating and a review on wherever you listen. For more of this type of content, you can head over to the YouTube channel and follow along on all the social platforms. Really appreciate it. See you on the mountain.